Welcome back. In the previous two lectures, we understood what are columns and how we can call or how we can use columns as expressions. In this lecture, we will try to drill down more into rows. If I ask you a question, what are the rows? Rows are the ones which are horizontally running in a data frame, assuming that this is a data frame involving multiple columns 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So these are the rows. Each row in a data frame is a single record. We are used to calling records as a part of spreadsheets and all those things, or even we refer row and record interchangeably. Here we call this particular thing as a row. We usually refer this as a row. Single record is a row, and Spark represents this record as a object of type row. So Spark manipulates the row object by using the column expressions only. What happens is you have a data frame. In a data frame you have a multiple columns. As we understood in our previous lecture, we cannot have a column without a row. We cannot have a row without a data frame. Because all of them are interspersed, whenever you want to do any manipulation with a row, you have to use the column expressions. So that is important. Internally, row is represented by an array of bytes. When you say array of bytes, for example, now assuming that this is an array, we have a byte, a byte, a byte. For example, now we can say the marks of one person. It's a marks. If you have to represent this as an array, so let us say is equal to some 65, 75 and 85. This is the marks of particular person. Now that we understood what are rows, let us try to understand how do we create the rows. We can create the rows by instantiating the row object. While we are instantiating the row object, we have to provide the column values also. Remember, when we create the data frames, rows are automatically created. In case if you want to create the rows manually, that is when you instantiate a row object and create the row. Before we do that, we definitely need to import this row object. For example, in this case, the name of the row what we are creating is my row, and we are using a row object, and these are the column values: hello, none and 1. Remember what is this? This is a Boolean value. And one important aspect is row themselves will not have schemas. Very important thing to be remembered. If you want to create the rows, what you got to do is you create the rows in such a way that these rows should become a part of a particular data frame. Obviously, right? Why are you creating the rows if you don't want them to be part of data frames? If you want to create the rows in such a way that the schema or what are the records you are trying to include as a part of the row should match with the schema of the data frame you are planning to append these rows into. That is one of the important aspects to be considered while creating the rows. Now that we understood what is row and how do we create the rows, the next important thing is how do we really access the contents of the rows, assuming that you have created a row. The row has different elements. The way you can access it is by using my row and square brace and 0. 0 is the first element in a row. This is how we can access the elements in a row. Isn't it easy? It is very easy. We understood what are rows, how do we create rows, and how do we access the elements of rows. Let us see this in a practical. Thank you. As a part of our conceptual lecture, we understood how do we refer the rows and how do we create the rows, and also how do we access the elements of the rows. Let us see all these things in action. To create a row object, all we need to do is we need to import the row object. The way we can do it is by saying from PySpark. Let's go ahead and execute this. We are importing a row object. That's the first thing we are doing. Then we can go ahead and create the row. So let's say we'll give the name of the row as my rows and instantiate a row object. Then go ahead and give the employee number or some random number and say name of the employee, then some salary 6,500. This is how we can instantiate a row object and create the rows. Let us execute this. So I'm just executing this here. There you go. We created the row. Let's go ahead and try to access the elements of this particular row. There you go. Then if you want, you can just access the first element. This is how you import the row object and create the rows by instantiating the row object and access the elements of the rows. Thank you.